Now this little clip, this little video is about us restoring our telephone box. There's a bit of a story about how we actually ended up with a telephone box, because one day I was at work and I had a phone call from a friend and he said, "Yeah, you want a telephone box?" I thought, yeah, I do actually. Well, anyway, I didn't know at the time it was on the back of a lorry and it needed to be delivered somewhere. So I was at work and I just said, yeah, I'll have the telephone box. You know, we agreed a price and that was fine. And then I didn't realise that my wife was at home waiting to take delivery of a tumble dryer. Well, she gets a phone call sometime in the day and the bloke on the phone says, "All right, love, I'm going to be here in 5 minutes. Where do you want it?" And she says, "I want it in the kitchen." He says, "You're having a laugh. I won't get that in the kitchen." And she says, "Well, where else am I going to put it? You know, I mean, I've been waiting for 3 weeks for this." He says, "Listen, I've just got instructions to drop this off and I'm not going to leave it on your drive." Well, with that, she was a bit disappointed. She said, no, I don't want it left on the drive. I want it in the kitchen. So it had a right shenanigans. And then obviously, when it turned up about half an hour later, it wasn't the tumble dryer. That came later. It was a phone box. So the guy with a great big grabber arm went to load it off and put it down on the drive. And she said, "You're not leaving that there. You can put that in the garden." So he upped it over the hedge and dropped it down in the garden. And because it went on soil, and they're pretty heavy, they're about 3/4 of a ton, and it went and it just leaned like the Leaning Tower of Pisa for a while. And that's where it stayed for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. And I was working out all these different ways of how I could put it on rollers and lower it down on pallets, make a rig, bit like the pyramids or moving Stonehenge or something. How could I move this phone box on my own, which would have been disastrous and real health and safety issue. Anyway, one day I was outside and I saw a guy go past in a Unimog, and it had quite a big vehicle and had a big grabber arm on the back. And I said to the bloke, I said, "Do you reckon you could move a phone box with that?" And he said, yeah, easy." So I said, "Well, it's 3/4 of a ton." He said, "Well, that's my load limit." No, she'll be all right." So he drove into the garden and I said, "I only want it to go from there to there because I built a concrete plinth for it, so it'd be nice and stable." And the problem with talking outside with all the crows. Anyway, so he got a nice concrete base and he said, "I'll do it for 50 quid. I thought, bargain. So anyway, he lifted it up, and as he lifted it up, this whole Unimog just rocked from side to side. You could see the weight, and he went, "Blimey, I can see how heavy this is." Anyway, he only had to edge forward, you know, like, I don't know, 20 feet, and then dropped it down on the plinth where you see it now. And then it sat there for another 5 years, and I kept threatening that I was going to do it up. And I said to my wife, "Do you know what, if you buy me a pot paint, get me some red telephone box, proper red telephone box paint, then when you've got the paint, I'll paint it." Well, she did. One Christmas she bought me the red telephone box paint from the GPO, the actual proper paint, and it sat there for another couple of years. So she wasn't getting impressed. Anyway, with the furlough and the lockdown, so when we were the lockdown with COVID-19, I had a bit of time on my hands. So I got that pot of paint out, gave it a good old stir, and you'll see what we did with it. Restoring the telephone box. Now, this is an old K6 telephone box in pretty poor repair. The thing is they're cast iron and they weigh 3/4 of a ton. So that's the only way you could make a phone call. And over this bit, over this side, there'd be a dial black telephone. And you'd have to put 2p in or 10p. Well, it was 2p for a call or 10p for a longer call, but before that it was even different money, but I can't remember what that was. Now there's a few facts about the red telephone box because it's pretty iconic. You know, it's as iconic as the red London bus. You think of the telephone box, you think of the bus, you think of London and so on. It's a great British icon, really. Now, it was designed by a man called Sir Giles Gilbert Scott. Now, he was born in 1880. Well, anyway, he was a little bit older. He entered a competition by the General Post Office to design a telephone box. And he came up in 1924 with the design for the original K2 telephone box. And then by the time in 1935 they'd come up with this design, which is the K6 telephone box, and that ran from 1935, well, right up until they replaced it. I think it was a sort of mid-80s with the fully glass kiosks, as it were. Well, what I've got to do is to take out each of these plastic windows.
Replace them with glass?
Yeah, because they should be glass, but these plastic ones have been put in because they were like easy maintenance. Holds them in with these little brass pins.
Oh,
and,
so you can't like...
It's quite.
Oh, there's like a twisty bit. Oh, oops.
And they just slot
They
in
poke
this.
out.
They slot in those little holes, and basically the brass, because the brass is good because obviously it doesn't rust, whereas the cast iron will rust. But so using brass means you can still get these out and replace them, no problem at all. But I'm going to need a complete new set of these. So removing the old panels, because you can see there's, you know, you can't actually see anything through them because it's just plastic that's been replaced, and so they've all frosted up. But I've had to hammer these little brass bits up, and then basically they've been puttied in, and I've just got to try and force the top of it out like that, hopefully, and then hopefully that will pull out quite nicely. Now, where I can't quite get the bottom of these off, I'm using just put this on here and give it a bit of a jimmy it up. That's it, that one. Some of them come off pretty easy and others are like this one. Oh, right nightmare. There you go. And there's the phone box now with all the glass taken out. Now the original K2 telephone box, it was designed in 1924, it weighed over an imperial tonne. So it was imposing but very weighty. Now here's something I've just learned, which is that the door is actually made of hardwood, and so I thought, is it a repair or is it, you know, were they all metal, but or cast? But actually, this the frame here. This frame is cast iron, and it's a cast iron frame sat within the door, which is made of timber, which is a hardwood timber. So that's quite interesting. And now I've got one broken telephone sign, which is the glass is shattered, unfortunately, so I'm going to have to take that one out and replace it. We've got one good one which needs a clean up on this side, but then we've got two more. This one's completely gone. Sir Giles Gilbert Scott, he was a clever architect. He was also noted for designing Liverpool Cathedral, and after the Second World War he oversaw the rebuilding work of the Houses of Parliament. Now when this K6 came out in 1935, it was 25% lighter, which made it 3/4 of a tonne, which is still pretty heavy. And by the end of the 30s there was 20,000 of these telephone boxes all over the UK. Now for fixing, I've bought some Glaze and Go. So this is a glazing clear sealant that will stick the glass in. I think you can use anything you like, really. Some people, I mean, when I took the glass out of mine, it was put in by putty, old-fashioned putty. But I've gone for toughened glass. I've gone for the actual proper glass. I don't really like these. I can't use these again because they're not very clear. So this is what I've decided to drill out here, and then cut this plate out, so that I can use this part of the frame as the steel frames that hold the glazing in. So this is the option I'm doing, but I don't know if it's going to work out. Like I say, this is one I've already cut out before, so it needs a little bit of filing. Polycarbonate's quite strong, and these two little holes which have rivets, brass rivets that go through to hold this in. Now, if you buy a set of the steel ones, which are incredibly expensive, but they're perfect, so you want an original phone box, that's what you need to get, but it's probably going to cost you 500-600 quid. It's about 500 quid without delivery and without VAT, so it'll be about 600 quid, 650 quid, I don't know, just for the steel frames. So I couldn't afford that, if I'm really honest. So what I've done, had these plastic glazing units in, and here it would have some glass, and I've actually sawn with a jigsaw the glass out, and I'm going to use these, once I've cleaned them up, as plastic frame holders opposed to the steel ones. So I'm not quite sure if it's going to work out yet. In now you can buy, there's two choices. You can actually buy these, which are, they're like polycarbonate, so they're not actual glass, but they look the part and they're very durable. And they're half the price of buying the original glass ones. Now the original glass ones, they come out of old phone boxes, so the condition of them is pretty good, but they're twice the price. Right, we have the pull and push side, so pull on the outside and push on the inside, and then we've got the small glazing packets in there, which I haven't opened yet, so I'm hoping that all 48 are there. So there's 48 of these little ones which go in the small slots down there, 24 of the larger ones in that packet there. Put this little frame, which actually does fit, where I've cut the plastic out, and the little pins, obviously you can't drive them home completely because they do come right through the other side, and they hold the bottom one in as well. So I've stuck a little blob of mastic, it's an adhesive mastic, over the hole, so there's a raw plug in there, but when I push the board against it, it's going to mark with a mastic where the holes need to be. An old black phone that can hang on the wall, and I've just screwed this little mounting bracket on there. Now obviously it's not a proper payphone, but I can still wire it in, and should, in theory, hang like that, and then we should be able to just get a nice long screwdriver. There we are, got a phone. Now, because of the design of these telephone boxes with all the glass, obviously there's so many little panels, and when we got to the mid-80s there was lots of vandalism with them and so on, and BT, when it was privatised, they went out of their way to try and come up with a design that was less, more durable, wasn't easily vandalised, but obviously had no design aspect to it. It wasn't very pretty. I mean, these are great, and fortunately there are 2,000 of these still in Britain that are now listed buildings.